What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Ham Radio Crash Course. Welcome to Saturday. Welcome to a contest weekend. This is a big contest. The ARRL sweepstakes is going on. You can hear it in the background. Whew. The bands are packed, as always, as we are probably rolling into a new solar cycle here. And that's good to hear. That's good news. That's good times for everybody on the ham bands. Big shout out to K6ARK. Saw a picture of his soda activation today, wading through the Manzanitas to get to the summit. Congratulations, dude. I think he activated 2 summits today, so fantastic work. Really quickly here, let me show you what we let me show you what the bands look like first. This is crazy. How's it going, everybody? I'm Josh KI6NAZ, and here's just what the ARRL sweepstakes looks like on my waterfall. What does it look like on your waterfall? Crazy. Absolutely crazy is what it looks like. Yeah, it's been nonstop. In fact, 40's just coming up. 20 meters was wall to wall the entire day, or when the contest started. And man, it's just going to get louder and louder from here. So if you're doing sweepstakes, good luck. Have fun out there. It's a harder exchange of a contest, but it's really fun. So I like it. I think it's cool that if you do the sweep, if you do the clean sweep, you can go buy a mug to signify that you made the sweepstake. Somebody asked, what is sweepstakes? Well, we'll talk about that in a second. Again, thanks everybody for coming out. I appreciate it. This is the Ham Radio Crash Course. I am Josh KI6NAZ. In the Ham Radio Crash Course, we try to create an inclusive space. And what we mean by that is your questions are welcome. Every different aspect of ham radio you try for the first time, you are a beginner, myself included. I learn new things constantly about ham radio. It is a lifelong hobby that is incredibly diverse, and in terms of technical breadth, it's very wide and very diverse. And it can feel a bit intense when you're looking at it, particularly for the first time. And you're looking in, the void looks back. That depth is ham radio. So anyway, welcome, and I'm glad you're watching, and I hope you join us by clicking subscribe, click the thumbs up. Join us over on Facebook and Discord, because a lot of questions get answered on the Discord, and that really helps out a lot of people, particularly when they're first getting started. So thanks for coming on out. So the question was asked, what is field day? And by the way, we are talking about setting up your shack, like setting up your shack for the first time. And we're going to talk about handhelds, mobiles, and base stations. It could be HF, could be VHF, UHF. I'm going to try to keep it high level enough that it should be useful for just about everybody. So Jeepers Creeper says some questions get answered on the podcast. We only guarantee one question a podcast. You will learn one thing, no more, no less, because we can't have you learning too much. Speaking of the podcast, I should probably pull that up. Why don't I have that up? Where did it go? Anyway, all right. So what do we got going on? Nope, we don't want to log into Podbean. Ham Tactical. Leia has new shirts for us today. Very cool. They're under all products, hamtactical.com. We've got new tees, and the first one is Release the Hams, and it is a little chest emblem of 2 people on horseback with Yagis, and they're chasing a fox with a beacon on it. So I think that was pretty cool, and that comes in a couple of different colors. And then it was suggested, and we did it. I have low power, the t-shirt. I have low power. So there it is. It was requested. It has been made. Leia did that. She did that for a couple days working on that. So cheers. I have low power. There you go. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Nicely done, Leia. And very cool colors there. Let's see. And then there's new long sleeve shirts as well. She added the 73 contacts. Thank you for contact 73, which could be a good one for your for those of you who do the Queen Sweep today, right? Scuba Stew with the super chat. Thank you for the $9.99. That's beer money right there, buddy. I appreciate that. Appreciate that very much. I'll give a comment too. There's somebody threw a super chat when I was offline. It was Adam F. Slick Fox super chatted. Or sent a donation. Super thank you on that one, Mr. Super Fox. I really appreciate it. It was very generous. I just wasn't streaming at the time, but thank you very much. Grant Greenwell, thank you, too, for the super chat. Very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Okay, let's see. What else? Oh, yeah, I got to talk about the sweepstakes. Let me go back over there. You're supposed to flip it. There you go. So the AWR sweepstakes is a weekend-long contest where you're trying to make as many contacts as possible. This weekend is the single sideband contest. 2 weekends ago was the Morse code contest. And basically how it works is if you can get a contact in every ARRL section that the ARRL covers, you will get, or you get what's called a clean sweep. You achieved the goal of the contest, and if you do that, you can technically get yourself a mug. And it comes out once a year. They're available for people who could do the clean sweep. At least that's my understanding, because I've never done it. Maybe sometime in the future I will, but yeah. Let's see. There was a couple of comments. Somebody asked a question about getting somebody into ham radio, and I didn't want to miss that. Sometimes that happens though, because we have now reached a point where the chat room is very fast and very furious. And again, thank you everybody for chatting. I appreciate it. But I want to make sure that I try and answer some of these questions, particularly stuff like that when it's getting people into ham radio. Looks like I missed it. Boy, I'm sorry. Oh wait. Oh no, you know what? It was just a statement. It was from the Expediting Ham. Okay. Hey Josh, my 10-year-old is going for his tech test tomorrow. Great job. He just pulled a 94% on the practice test. Well, here's a big thumbs up. Good luck on that. And that's absolutely awesome. So keep up the great work. There it is. Wait, I think that he just sent me a super chat. Oh, you didn't have to do that. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Good luck to your son. I hope he makes it, and I hope he joins the ranks soon. I'm sure he'll get his license no matter what, but if you're pulling a 94%, you're probably going to do just fine. So, cheers to him. I am drinking red wine today. I don't have my HRCC pint glass. If you want a pint glass, hamtactical.com. We have a couple different logos on there. The main logo and then the Technician General and Extra if you're interested in that. So cheers to everybody. I'm just drinking some cheap boxed red wine. And if you listen to the podcast, which is the Ham Radio Crash Course podcast, you will have heard us talking about this. And that's a reminder, too. The podcast is weekly, and it is my wife and I. My wife is not licensed. I am currently dragging her into the world of ham radio, and I make her take practice tests on a podcast. And we get to see her reactions to the questions. She does a great job. She's a trooper. She's a trooper for dealing with me alone, but then humoring me enough to be on a podcast. And I always tell people, how do you get your wives involved in ham radio? Well, you start a podcast, and then you have them be on as guests, and you make this whole thing really complicated. That's what you do. So anyway, thank you, Leia. I appreciate everything that you do. All right, so what are we talking about today? We are talking about, what is it? Scorpius Gaming and more. Right on. I don't know what a huff is. You'll have to explain that to me. Got my call sign HA5GGV, and in celebration, I burnt my 9-to-1 on a 20-meter long wire. Should I swap to a 4-to-1 Balun or a 49-to-1? Keep up the good work. If it's just a long wire, so you can go to a 49-to-1, but you're going to have the appropriate Balun length. Wire length for the antenna. It will need to be cut to the resonance of the lowest band that you're going to operate on. So if it's a 40-meter wire, you'll get something like, you'll get 20 and different multiples of that whole. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but you'll get the harmonics of the 40-meter band that you're doing. So a 49-to-1 is the way to go. A 9-to-1 is what you want to use if you're just using a random wire, and you're going to use a tuner to kind of sort out your radio on where it should be. So right on. Sat Mill, let's see. Oh, man. 9 Foxtrot Radio, thank you. Love all the new merch. Putting together a Christmas list now. Maybe this will buy a round or two. Thank you for the 556. Very good. And Sat Mill for the $5. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And Christiana. Hey, thank you again, Christiana. I appreciate the support. Josh, get a lot of comments on my HRCC Extra shirt. All right. Thank you for wearing the logo proudly. I appreciate it. And Nick Smith dragging her for 2 years, way before the podcast started. Good luck, man. Good luck. All right. So here we go. What are we talking about today? Let's just dive right into it. Questions and questions and questions. I get a ton of questions on getting a shack set up. And I'm using that term broadly. Your handheld is technically a shack, right? If your car is technically a shack, lots of things classify as a shack. And so today we're going to talk about getting things set up, using the radio in an appropriate way, getting yourself set up to be as successful as possible. So hopefully these things will help you out. And I will be answering questions as we go along, particularly at the end. If we have enough time, which I don't feel we will possibly do a Zoom call. But what I would like to do is if you do have questions and you're getting started, or maybe you're moving from a mobile radio to a HF base station radio, or you're going from a handheld to a mobile radio and you have questions, join us on the Discord. At the end of every live stream, we go to the Discord and we stay there for hours and answer all your questions. And there's always a ton of smart people. It's more than just me there. We usually get a ton of YouTubers in there too. I saw K8MRD, I think, was in the chat, and we saw K6ARK, we saw a couple of the other YouTubers, and they're a wealth of knowledge. Those two in particular are great with antennas. So, digital analog ham. Oh, digital analog ham is being cheeky. He's asking me a question that is very difficult. What is your favorite ham radio if you only had to have one? Digital analog ham. Boy. You're putting me on the spot, but I'll answer it like this. The 705. I'm pretty confident I would say the 705 at this point. The reason? It's highly usable, easy to use. VHF, UHF, and HF. It does so many things. Don't get me wrong, I love my 7300. It's the thing you just looked at, but if you could only have one, then you kind of have to go with the multi-tool option, right? That's my point of view. But we don't live in that world. We can have many different radios, so I do have lots of radios. And, that's the argument I use with my wife. How you can't just have one radio. You got to have a 100-watt radio, and you got to have a 10-watt radio or less, or QRP. You got to have VHF, UHF, honey. You can't just not have those things, right? And that's what I do. So, yeah. Dawn N5SKT says, I love the 705, but I'm not giving up my flex. I understand. Okay, so what's our goal for tonight? I will attempt to walk through the standard setup and tips that I've encountered through my time in ham radio. You should be able, at the end of the show, look at your ham radio equipment and feel comfortable enough to set it up and get on the air. At least that's the goal. All right, so we're going to talk about antennas. Connector types, we're breaking it down to very specific things here in the beginning, and then we're going to build upon that. So generally, the order in which you will see antenna connectors, feed line connectors, is going to be UHF, and that's PL259 and SO239. I got that wrong. It should be 239. PL239. And that's the plug and the socket. That's what PL and SO means. And then the other type is going to be BNC and N-type. And there's already, Don, really good comment, SMA, if you're using VHF, UHF radios, you'd see SMA too. Good point, Don. That is a good point. That should be corrected. I will sort that out at some point. And there's a picture of SMA. So right there, that is what SMA looks like. And his question comes up constantly, is the gender of a plug, whether it's male or female. That is denoted by the center pin. The center pin of the coax denotes the gender. SMA male, SMA female, UHF female and male, center pin. So anytime you get in a back and forth, like you're not sure what the how to say on the phone, do you have this right connector that I need for my radio, my feed line, my whatever, the center pin is what's driving it. Okay? So keep that up. Keep that in your mind. Oh, are people mentioning the eyes? Leia has mentioned the Google. Leia kind of went into my ham shack and put googly eyes on all the dials for everything in my shack. So that's why the 7300 has googly eyes now. I'm looking into my my webcam, and it has googly eyes. In fact, can you see that? It's literally looking at you. I always feel like somebody's watching me. Literally, everything's got googly eyes. So that's where that comes from. Okay, so coax type. You're probably curious. All right, I've got an antenna, or I think I know what antenna I'm going to get. And I have a radio, or I'm thinking about a radio. I'm going to need some kind of coax to feed the radio, feed the antenna. So generally, RG58 is cheap. It's okay for most installations, but it's not great for UHF, higher frequency stuff it's not good at. And you don't want to go over 50 feet with it. Really, you don't want to go over 25 feet, and I'll explain why in a little bit. RG8X, slightly better than the 58, but still not great for UHF. RG8U, improved of RG8X, better for UHF, and again, UHF being the top frequency I'm talking about. If you're talking higher frequency stuff than that, then you really got to focus on feed line. In fact, you need really short feed lines. And what I use generally is LMR 400. I use it for my HF home station and my VHF equipment as well in the home. That is, mobile radios that I use in the shack. It's expensive. It's heavy. You really can't put a really big bend on it, but it works really well. Mike K8MRD says, I know a guy who did a video on coax losses at different frequencies. I wonder who that could be. LMR 400 is good, though. LMR 240 is another good one. That's a little bit more rarer, though, and that's a comment that's in the chat from Mike N8YO. LMR 240 is going to be thinner and easier to bend, easier to kind of get around. So, yeah. LMR 400 Ultraflex, yes, but it's still big and bulky. The issue with all these different types is all feed line suffers from power line loss over distance, or power loss over distance. And it's measured at dB loss at 100 feet. So a 3 dB loss over 100 feet means 50% of your RF power is lost through the coax, through the transmission line. Okay, so that's really important numbers. You're talking about, you go buy an amp, you connect it to your radio, and then you're transmitting at 800 watts and you've got 3 dB loss. You're now transmitting at 400 watts, right? So it's really important, particularly when you start looking at VHF, UHF, to have good coax. Don't forget that. Don't just buy the cheap stuff. It will mean that your 50 watts, more of it gets to the antenna, which is where you want it to be. And then consider the loss of each coax you purchase to know how much RF is actually getting to the antenna. And there is a table for that. And I got this off of jpolantenna.com. I can't remember the call sign of he's a YouTuber, I believe, as well, who runs it, but go check him out. It's good. jpol-antenna.com. And that's the breakdown. So you can see that if you just look at 450 megahertz and 150, there it is, KB9 VBR, there you go. If you just look at VHF, we're just talking VHF, 150 and 450. RG58 is a 6.2 dB loss. That's huge. And then 10.6 dB loss. That's even huger. And then you can see that the RG8U it's twice as good on UHF and even better on VHF. LMR 400, look at those numbers. LMR 400 is fantastic. So highly recommended. Really appreciate that. Muddy Tires Club, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. So yeah, consider your coax is extremely important when putting your shack together. And then going along with this, since we're talking about feed lines and coax and all that fun stuff, you should consider cutting your own wires, your coax wires, to the length that you need for your station, and that allows you to crimp the connectors you want on the end. You will pay more up front for a big spool of coax, an appreciable number of connectors, and coax crimpers. There are two types of crimpers, crimp-on, and then there's solder-on connectors. And that initial price bump, you see savings as you build more cables over time. So really good idea to do that, because also, again, you're cutting it specifically to what you need for your shack. the length is important, as we said, right? Keeping the runs short makes it a little bit better and helps you avoid loss. Digital analog ham, I have made my first FT8 contacts in the last few hours on mag loop on a 705. I hit Russia several thousand miles away. He's in the UK, by the way. What is your furthest contact on FT8 on the lowest power? I don't know what you mean by lowest power. A microwatt? I've made, very far contacts, but I put out like 200 watts. Keep in mind, FT8, not a low power mode. I want everybody to remember that. That's one of our mottos here on the Ham Radio Crash Course. FT8 is not a low power mode. Pure Michigan, KE8PWP. Didn't know we'd be getting a concert. Got my tech license last week. You and the Botkins over at T-Rex Arms played a big part. Right on, yeah. Those guys are awesome. They're doing some really interesting stuff that's like outside of ham radio, but it's still really important communication stuff that they're diving into. That I'm new to that as well, so it's not all new to me. And so when I watch that stuff, it's a lot of fun. All right, so weather sealing your coax. So you put up an antenna, you got a coax run, and at that feed point of the antenna, you need to weather seal it. And I have a 3-step process for this. I use dielectric grease in the female coax connector, the center where the center pin's going to go, and that basically fills all the empty space with the dielectric. It helps to maintain a watertight seal. I then hit that whole rad, the connector, both the threads on the antenna that stick out and the outer collar. I hit it with coax wrap. I've been using coax wrap for years, and I use about 6 inches of it, and I make sure that I'm pulling the coax wrap around the connector in the direction the threads go to tighten it. So I'm going to continue that pull really tight. You got to pull it pretty tight to get what you want out of it. 6 inches of tape will get you what you need, but you do have to pull it pretty decently hard. And so after I wrap it, I try to go as high up on that antenna connector as I can. Wrap, get past the body of the metal connector about 1/2 inch to a full inch onto the coax line, and then I wrap the whole thing with electrical tape. And then definitely go back and check your electrical tape once a year. That's for me, though, in California. For those of you that are in weather where you have freezing temperatures and then thaws and freezings and thaws, you want to make sure you check it, because what'll happen sometimes is the electrical tape will kind of give way and it'll like flop down and it'll just be hanging there. That would be your cue to go in there, take the electrical tape off, reapply fresh electrical tape. The self-amalgamating silicone coax wrap stuff is fantastic stuff, and it will stand up in the weather, in most weather situations, but I like to give the electrical tape over the top of it to protect it even more, because you do not want to be getting water into your coax. Because if you thought you were losing signal on through your coax with just power loss, you're going to lose even more of it if weather and water and all that fun stuff gets in there. So make sure you do that. That's my recommendation. All right, adapters. They're kind of the bane of a lot of people's existence. A lot of people hate them, but they're kind of just a natural evil that we have to deal with. Have a ton of them on hand. Generally, the most popular ones are going to be your PL259 female to BNC, BNC female. Sorry. PL259 female to BNC male seems to be the one I use the most often, and that takes the coax from the PL259 down to BNC to connect to like a QRP radio. Noah Burton, HRCC got me into ham from CB and led me like a samurai through these lockdown times to my tech ticket in September, onto my general in December, KC1 and WN. Oh, thank you. That's a very nice comment. I appreciate that. You must now call me Sifu Hashnasi from now on. Thank you very much. I just mixed two languages. Sifu is Chinese. So that would be sensei. That would be, so I'm Sensei Hashnasi. Thank you. Jay Russ, he got to it before I could get to it. He says, adapters aren't a problem. Some think they cause losses, not enough to even notice. I agree. I 100% agree with you. That's not why I don't like adapters. The reason why I don't like adapters is when you need one, you forgot it. I know KNMRD's in the house, K6ARK. I know KK6USY, another YouTuber. We've all left adapters at home. We've all done it on an activation. I don't care, what anybody says. You definitely you will need more of them. So pick up more adapters. Also, let's see, what's the other good one? PL259 down to SMA is also good, so you can connect it to your HT. That would be the one I'd recommend. So there you go. Okay, powering your station. Power sources. So your all ham gear runs off of 12 volts, right? 12 volts power in the form of, whatever. You can power it off your car. That means you can run off a battery. There's a lot of really good batteries on the market, but generally there are a couple of brands that are more pointed towards ham radio. I use Bioenno batteries generally, but you're fine using a battery to power most of your stuff. The only thing you have to consider is the amp hour or the amp capability of that battery to be able to run your radio. And then, of course, you can also use a power supply, and that's basically taking the mains AC power, converting it to DC, and then that's what you run your equipment off of. And there are two basic types of power supplies: linear and switching power supplies. If you look past Gengar there on the picture, right there, that is a small MFJ switching power supply. A linear supply is kind of the older style. They're still around, still useful. There's lots of reasons to use a linear, and we'll talk about them. But a linear supply uses a transformer to convert AC to DC power. Linear supplies are less power efficient, but they generate little to no RFI. They create very little noise. Switching supplies, on the other hand, are cheaper, lighter. They do, however, output RFI as they are switching back and forth, and they're using solid state components, which basically the circuitry design of it causes it to switch back and forth. The basic recommendation is linear supplies are really clean. You don't have RFI issues with linear supplies, but if you get a switching supply that is of good quality, it likely won't affect your ham radio experience. And you would use something like this whether you were running with an HF radio or a mobile radio in your home. There's lots of situations where you would need a power supply versus just running off of batteries. And sizing it is incredibly important. So this bottom picture here is the power requirement for the 7300. And you can see it wants 13.8 volts. Its transmit draw is 21 amps. So you have to make sure that you have a power supply that can put out the amps that it needs to be able to run at full power. And what controls how many amps it's taking or pulling from the power supply is going to be the power output that you have set the radio to. So at 100 watts, it's going to draw 21 amps. So keep that in mind. On receive side, though, very little. 1 amp, 1.25 amps when you have everything cranked up on it. So you need to supply a supply. You need to provide yourself a supply that will actually feed the radio the appropriate power. Okay, solar. Now going back to batteries, let's say you don't want to go down the power supply road. You don't want to deal with a potentially RFI creating power supply. Again, that's kind of rare. You just want to do solar. There's no reason why you can't do that. You can build yourself a complete solar setup. And you basically connect, you run your power lines down from the supply or from the panels into what's called a charge controller, and then that connects to batteries, and your radio connects to that, and that's how you run. There's two great options that I really like for solar controllers. That's the Genasun brand, and the Buddy Pole does something called the Power Mini. They've got a bigger one now too, but the Power Mini is great. In fact, that's what's pictured there in that image. And what you're looking for in a charge controller is maximum power point tracking, or MPPT. So whatever you do, make sure you're getting that kind of charge controller, or it will be noisy. And again, noise is going to translate to spikes on your radio, a high noise floor. High noise floor means you're not going to hear those down low signals that you might want to make a contact with. Those down low signals are oftentimes DX, or stations that are, rare or not running a lot of power. All right. So now we're talking about handheld. See, I needed to get you all up to the point that we can start breaking it down. Handhelds, they're simple, right? You just connect the antenna and that's it. Kinda, yeah. I mean, generally, yeah, they're supposed to work out of the box. Never transmit an HT without an antenna on it, though, or a dummy load or something like that. But that's the key takeaway here. Number one thing, I would consider, this is a shack radio, or this is something you want to have local, available, charged. Consider getting a drop-in charger for your radio, and figure out a USB charge solution if one exists for your radio. I didn't mention it here. I've covered it in many other videos. Have, if your radio offers it as an accessory, a battery backup or a AA battery tray that you can slap into the back of it. It won't transmit as much power, 1 watt, 2 watt output versus the 5 that's probably standard, but it'll allow it to run longer, and rechargeable batteries are pretty easy to find, so you can keep running. The 5150 BHC, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. I didn't catch that earlier, so thank you. And BNC adapters, big tip. You want, if you can swing this, because this requires probably swapping out antennas. Any of the radios that I use that are like a daily driver radio, I have BNC adapters that take it from SMA to BNC female. And that means that I can just take, in fact, I have it right here. I'll switch it over there so you can see it. The signal stick has a BNC connector to it. I get the BNC antennas where I can, because then I can just switch it on, take it off. I can go from a mag mount in a shack or a mag mount in a car that uses BNC. I can go to any handheld I want, and I don't have any problem. Also, SMA connectors, the ones that you actually screw onto the radio, they will degrade over time. They're not rated for a ton of cycles of taking them on and off. So you need to make sure that if you're going to go down that road, you might want to throw a BNC on it, and then you can just connect it on, connect it off. That means you need to get BNC connector antennas, though, which you may be deep down the rabbit hole of SMAs. So that was kind of something I decided. I said, from now on, I'm only getting BNC antennas unless there's a very specific reason, and that's, yeah. Yeah, you don't have to worry about the loss on BNCs. All right, a note on base station antennas and HTs. You should absolutely try using a base station antenna with an HT. There's no reason not to. Mag mounts are fine. Throw it on a filing cabinet. In fact, we're gonna show off some shacks at the end of the show, and there's a couple people that have a mag mount right on a cookie sheet, a flipped over baking sheet, and they're running with that just fine. There's no reason why you can't do that, and you should, and it's a fine option, and it will improve your receive capability and your transmit. The thing to keep in mind, though, is base station antennas generally use a PL259, so you're going to have to break it down or get down to BNC if you go that route, or SMA. Again, now we're back to adapters, or make yourself, snip the end and do your own connector. Mark KI5 MacBook Pro MBP. Thank you for the super chat. All right. Somebody asked, do I have a cradle for my FT3DR? Yes, I do. I use a charging cradle for my Yaesu FT3DR. And that cradle is universal with the FT2DR. Any of the FT radios, I believe, all the accessories are standard. So this is another question I get. By the way, there's another cradle, my Kenwood cradle, that I bought some crazy old school cradle, and it just happens to fit my D72. So that's what it lives on. All right. My general experience, another question I get asked a lot is, do I use the radio? Do I leave it on when it's in the charger? Whether it's USB charged or a power plug into the radio or a drop-in charger, I never leave it on. maybe that's my ability that I have a couple radios that I can just turn one off, charge it, use another one, and just switch them. But I don't want to have a radio on and then sitting in the charger. That has led to some of my radios, one in particular, which is why I don't ever do this, that the battery became depleted. Or, as already being mentioned, just get spare batteries, right? Leave the battery on the charger, pop the battery off, put a new one on, you're good to go. Yeah, lots of people commenting on my wine. Oh man, I love wine. Oh, I've been a wine drinker for a very long time. I don't usually drink on the shows wine. It's usually beer, but today I had wine. Andrew Wells, yes, the drop-in charger. You can drop the battery just right in the back of it. You don't have to have the radio body attached to it. But that's my pro tip, is this gives you a reason to buy more radios. So, when your wife asks, why are you buying so many radios? Well, it's so I can always have one on and I can have another one charging. Accessories. So, going along with the HT, your handheld being kind of like a shack, although, it's not. But HTs have a world of accessories that you can add, help meet whatever your radio goals are. Hand mics, speaker mics, holsters, GPS receivers all come to mind. The tip here, though, is to remember that if you go down one brand's accessory tree, it likely won't support other brands' radios. All of the major brands kind of have their own way of doing things, and they usually don't play well with other brands. So it's kind of you don't want to blow the money on it, right? So just keep that in mind. And let's see. The exception here is that a lot of Kenwood gear will work with Baofangs. It's the same connector. So, all right, mobiles. For the car or the shack, should you use a mobile radio? Another question I get. Should I use a mobile radio in my home? Yes, absolutely. That's what I use. I have two mobiles here. One's for packet, and the other one's just for use for voice, FM. Mobile radios are often vehicular focused. That's kind of their design. But they work fine in the shack too. Ham radio gear, again, is 12 volts based. So as long as you have a 12 volt power source, doesn't matter where you run it. I will say, though, if you are going to wire up your VHF radio to your car, you need to go direct to battery. I know that's a pain in the butt, but you should go direct to battery. Make a hole, find a hole through the firewall, and pop it through there. Make sure you're doing that, because it's not good otherwise. What a lot of people will do is they'll end up tapping into a line that's not really giving the radio what it needs, or you'll pop a fuse, or it's not going to handle the draw of the radio that the radio needs to put out 50 watts. We've come a long way kind of since people set car electrical lines on fire, but that used to happen, and that's kind of like the worst case scenario, is that you'll fry up some of your electrical lines or electrical system in your car. But just keep that in mind. Oh yeah, and this has been my experience. Mobile antennas, they will use odd connectors to keep the diameter of the connector small. And then they'll use a larger adapter that will get you back to PL259. Those are kind of janky. Usually the coax is really thin. It's not very good stuff. And then also the connectors are also kind of janky as well. So wherever possible, see if you can get your connection from that antenna mount back to some kind of standard coax connection and standard coax line. All right. The other thing to keep in mind, again, this is going back to brands, is that mics aren't all the same. The connectors that one radio company uses is not the same that other radio companies use. A lot of them will use the RJ plug connectors. Some of them, like Alinco's, have the screw-on barrel connectors. So again, none of these accessories or required pieces like a microphone is really even going to work with every radio, right? It's going to be pretty specific. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about a radio. Think of it as being one extra thing you have to buy. It seems like often if you're jumping between brands, it kind of gets you sometime in that their stuff doesn't translate over. So, make sure you don't burn yourself. So basic instruction here for wiring up a mobile installation is wire the power to battery. Again, go direct to battery. Mount the antenna somewhere. And the general belief and understanding is the highest point of your vehicle, in the middle of that point, and then right off of there is going to give you the best performance for an antenna like a vertical. However, I generally use lip mounts. I use like a clamping lip mount that goes on the hood, the rear hood, the hood of the car, or the rear trunk latch, or whatever, the bed of the truck, whatever. Just make sure that how you mount it, you can mount most of them in a way that isn't going to mar up the finish and make it look bad. You can make it totally like you were never there, depending on how you set it up. And definitely keep the coax run as short as possible. But, and here's the thing, keep it short because of the losses, like we talked about earlier, but not because of some mythical 13-foot rule that somebody told you. That does not exist, so don't worry about that. I know that goes around. I get that question a lot, is how long should my coax line be for the best performance in my car? And the answer is it should be as short as possible to avoid losses, not because of some 13-foot mythical number that you heard from someone. So keep that in mind. No, it's not 18 feet. All right, base station radios. A base station radio is like a mobile radio. So if you understand how a mobile radio is set up, guess what? The base station is basically the same thing, but just more. There's more to do. There's more you can do. There's more things you kind of have to worry about. But no need to feel anxious. It's the same core setup for mobile radios. So feed it the power, get it an antenna, and likely there's some other things you'll want to add on to it to make the operating a little bit easier, but it's the same kind of idea. So what you're going to connect is power source, again, antenna. I like to recommend an external power /SWR meter, standing wave ratio meter, but if you don't have one, that's okay. And that goes in between the antenna and the radio. Grounding. I did a couple of videos, but I did a full, over an hour talking about grounding your shack and why that's important. That was a live stream. I'll post the link in the description so you can watch it. A lot of you that are in the chat now probably already watched that video or maybe even saw it live. But grounding is very important. You should be prepared to do that as well. And then obviously your microphone, we kind of talked about that already. And then, if you want to do digital, you're going to need a USB to your computer or your radio or some kind of audio interface that connects to the radio for getting audio in and out. And then what they call CAT control, which is computer assisted tuning. And it kind of looks like this. So you've got a computer. The computer connects to AC. Your power supply connects to AC. That puts out DC, which powers your transmitter, receiver, your transceiver, your radio. And then that connects via coax, and then that tuner connects to the antenna. So that's kind of a sample setup, is just, real abstract boxes. But you can see the grounding there, right? What they're all doing. They're going to a point of the ground, a bus bar as it's called, and then to an earth spike. And if you liked that drawing, go watch that grounding video because there's a lot more drawings like that. All right. I've been getting a ton of questions on amps, believe it or not. So people are getting into amps, which I think is kind of cool. So the general setup for an amp is to place it between your antenna and the radio. If your antenna requires a tuner, right? So you've got an SWR that's a bit higher than you want it to be, and you need a tuner to trick your radio, or in this case your amp, that to let it push the power through. You need to have a tuner that can handle the output of your amp, and it must go in between the amp and the antenna. You have to do that if your antenna is not resonant. Otherwise, your amp will take the damage, and probably you'll burn up tubes. You'll burn up whatever the solid state components are, and that would be bad. So make sure you're either running a resonant antenna or you have a tuner that's appropriately sized and maybe a little bit bigger, beefier than the amp you're going to be putting through it. So yeah, you'll need to have a tuner that can handle the amp. At the end of the chain, though, before the antenna, so radio, amp, tuner, SWR power meter, because that SWR power meter will give you a indicator of how much power you're getting out to the antenna, at least before it, gets whatever line loss, and then what your SWR is. And that's going to be really important. Again, something really that's handy, because it will tell you. It's kind of like it's your canary in the coal mine that tells you, oh, this is set up right or it's not set up right. I love having an SWR meter kind of at the end of the chain when you're in the shack. It does really help things out. The SWR meter on your radio is fantastic, but it's really just talking about what's going in and out of the radio. It doesn't give you so much indication on what's getting through all the other pieces in the chain, and that's important. Scuba Stu asks, antenna switches, signal loss? No, not really. Or power loss or power line loss is something you might be... No, it's fine. And then a dummy load. I use an antenna switch that has 4 antennas connected to it, and one of the antennas is a dummy load. So yeah, if you're curious about how your station's working, you want to make sure that everything's working correctly before you go on the air, throw it on the dummy load, bring up your amp, bring up all that stuff, put the power through it, see the power go out through the power meter into the dummy load. You're probably good to go. Somebody asked, do I prefer an analog amp or an amp, tube-based amp, or a solid-state amp? I feel like the tube amps might be a better place for some people to get started, because they're a little bit more resilient than some of the solid-state amps are. The solid-state amps, if you have a bad match or something happens and you get some of that too much power coming back down the coax line, you can harm a solid-state amp easier than you can harm a tube-based amp. And tubes are generally pretty resilient, and they're still available. They're still building them in some far-flung places in the world. So yeah, they're not a bad idea. Tube seems like a fine place to go. So yeah, those are my slides. But I put out the call on Discord. By the way, join our Discord. We're going to be doing an after chat over there. If you have questions on any of this stuff, setting your first shack together, it doesn't have to be that. It could be anything. And I'll be looking at the chat here shortly. We'll take some questions and whatnot. But yeah, I asked for shack pictures, and I got a lot of them. So here we go. And thank you, everybody who sent them in. The W3MLJ, the QRZ.com fiend. All these are from Discord, so those are the usernames unless I know their first name or whatever. So that's the username there. This guy has... How many monitors is that? 5 monitors, and 3 of them are on QRZ. Fantastic, though. He's got an iMac. He's got Windows. It looks like he's probably got Linux in there somewhere. And he's got a TV. And I think he's watching Ham Radio Concepts in that video. What the heck, man? Take a picture with my videos in the back. I'm just kidding. I don't care. All right. The Beekman Wolf. He's got a simple setup, but nice. Got an extra TV in there. Got an iMac, and he's running a... I can't tell what that is. Is that a Kenwood? Or is that... Somebody posted in... I can't tell what that radio is. Other than comment from Derek about sourcing tubes. A lot of the tubes that are in amps today are really still prevalent. All right, 5150 BHC. Josh, your podcasts have been keeping me entertained, and I'm learning while I drive all over Arizona for work. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. And, my wife is into it now. She's fully committed to doing the podcast. Not that she wasn't before, but I'm filling up, by the way. I'm getting more wine. If you heard a sound that was a bit ominous. It's an FT450? Wait, it was? That's not an FT450. That's not an FT450. I just can't tell because it's hard to see. Alex, KC1, NHG, the winner of the most mixed-use workspace in this pictures that I received. There are so many things going on with this picture. He's got so many things going on. He's got a tough book in there. He's got a radio. He's got a graphic novel on his seat. Looks like he's got a medieval helm, a Pip-Boy, and then like an Apache case down below. So Really good. Thank you, Alex, for providing that. Nice clean shack from Sam. That is a 450. That is a Yaesu 450. So Sam, N5 PSR. Nice clean shack. I like his monitor setup, but it looks like a Yaesu 450. No, I think that's a Kenwood. You can tell a Yaesu too because it's got a black background. David, KM6DOV, by any means necessary, as he gets the work done here. He's got a 7100 in there and a Yaesu 450. I'm showing you a lot of these pictures because a lot of times we just make this stuff work. There's no reason to get too pretentious about any of this stuff. Just get on the air. That's what matters. So, and I appreciate everybody sharing. This one, now this is Kyle showing off though. Kyle AA0Z showing off his remote shack. He's got a Flex in a Go box with a Elecraft tuner and then that whole awesome looking power distribution system that he has with the ground bar. Really, really cool. That was really nicely done. KI5FIQ, really just clean shack, really nice. He does WinLink, he was saying, with this little packet modem there. Really, really cool. KI5FAQ, A Baker from the Discord. Very good. Joseph Stalin, no relations, also the name on the Discord. Simple little setup, but it works for him. Ethan showing off again. Ethan's always got a really nice looking shack. He moved, so this I think is his new location, right? Is this right? I think I've got that right. I think that's the new location. He'll have to tell us in the chat. He's got a 7300 in there, a couple other radios, little workspace. So he's got his computers on the right-hand side, and then he's got the radios on the left-hand side. Good stuff. Really clean. Really nice. The pterodactyl. Even dinosaurs are getting into the ham game, and they're apparently have some amazing shacks. He's got a full rack mount system for, it looks like, HF radio, VHF, UHF. He's got scanners in there, a whole host of VHF, UHF radios, networking equipment. Very, very nice. That is a nice shot. Really clean, too. Enum, and even enumerations are getting into ham radio now. 7300, he's got some test tubes with plants in it. Another clean setup, nice PC case. And he has is that a solder on PL259 connector I think he's got sitting there? I think it is. Kevin, FR6RQZ, has got a nice little setup. He has this is the one that I wanted to point out. He has a baking sheet with a mag mount on it. There on the right-hand side. See that? So you can do all this with just your mag mount antenna. And he's running a linear power supply in that middle picture into his ICOM. And I think below that is also an ICOM. It is. It's the smaller 2-meter one. And he's got a little power distribution with his power poles. Good stuff. Really clean. Again, nice. And I think he's got an HF radio that's kind of out of on the lower left on the first picture on the left. And KF6 again, RQZ has a host of handy talkies as well. And talk about making it work. Look at his center connector there, right here, for his balun that goes to his radio. He's got a line of coax, big old coil of coax here, and a wire drapering across over to his shack. Making it work. Get on the air. That's the most important thing. That's what we're doing. That's what we're trying to do. Jake K0RQ, also really clean. He's got a full rack setup for all his networking stuff off to the side, and then what is that? Is that a bank of computers underneath? He's got a couple of different things going on, but nice clean setup. Really, really nice there too. As K8MRD said, no wide shots, and then here's 2 wide shots. Don, N5SKT, showing off his 705 on a tripod, and he got the G-Stock as well, and he's on a computer desk. Looks like he's got possibly a linear power supply. This one's really nice, though. Pete, wow, look at this shack. He's got all his electrical testing equipment on the left-hand side, and he's got his computer on the right-hand side, 73 in the middle, and he's got that really cool overhead display. That is really nice. Really nicely done, Pete. That's a really cool one. Kudos on that for sure. Connor is showing off. Connor texted me this, and he's got his Flex there on the left. That's the Maestro. Big SWR power meter. See that? That's a good indicator. Connor uses it. He's in contests a lot. A big display for the power meter is always really good if you can swing it, because then you know if something's going bad and you can stop transmitting. The big problem is not that you don't have problems. You will have problems. Eventually antennas fail, balance fail, ununs fail. Stuff happens. Coax goes bad, gets water in it, all that stuff. You want to stop transmitting as soon as you know something's wrong. And the best way to do that is have big indicators that tell you, hey, something's going on. Stop transmitting. That is a MFJ meter. I'm pretty sure that's an MFJ meter. I have a smaller one. A little bit smaller than that. Chuck! KK6USY is in the chat. Thanks, Chuck, for being on. This is his shack setup. Nicely appointed. He's got a lot of options. Another mixed-use type space. He's got a lot going on there. Tools and all his other fun stuff for when he does his videos, his work. It looks like he's got his editor. He's editing a video on that picture, so that's awesome. Good work, Chuck. Side boom, KI5FWJ. He's got a shack in the box. Kind of hard to see. He needs to get some lighting. But it looks like a Yaesu 857 and a Shegu G90, and then behind that is a FT2DR. Evan, this is a nice clean setup too. He's got a little kind of caddy that he has the 7300, the power supply, the Astron power supply. He has the LDG tuner. He has the G90. And he has the Anytone mobile radio right there. And he's got a speaker I can see poking up behind it, the ICOM speaker. That's a nice setup. And he's got his computer on the left-hand side. Good stuff. And then HT's above that. I think this is no, I've got one more. Steve, VK Steve, sent me this. Here's his setup. Running a Yaesu. Is that the Yaesu, as Steve would call it? With a, looks like a MFJ tuner, manual tuner above that, and then a 857 above that, and then some, oh, that's a TYT. That's a TYT or a Yaesu above that. VHF, UHF. Cool. All right. Matt set these in from AE4MQ. He's got his model rockets behind it. Very, very nice setup. He is running a 10-tech amp. That's the big box there on the left-hand side of the rightmost picture. And he's running with a 7300. And he's showing off his KX3 there. And he also has a power meter, SWR meter. That's right here in between them, that light-up box. So make sure you're considering that. Brad Ward with the super chat. Leia made me contribute to the HRCC Shack Fund to help it make it look like the other nice ones. My shack's great. I have a very Spartan view of the world. So if Leia gets in, if she gets serious about ham radio, we will have to do a makeover, because likely she will not want to work ham radio in here. But hey, I like it, and that's all that matters to me. All right. So we're all out of shacks. And we're pretty much all out of time. So I'll stay on here for a little bit, taking some questions. Jay Russ says, my shack is my little oasis. I agree. Zach Van, would Leia get her own shack then? I mean, she has her own office. There's no reason why, depending on what she wanted to get into, that she couldn't have a VHF, UHF radio in her office area. Oh, Dawn, I did pull that image, but it was just the box. I wanted to see the whole shack kind of thing. You sent good pictures. I'm just saying. Everybody knows what a flex radio looks like, and it's just a box. Yeah, Mike, N8YO, rack mounting, right? Isn't that? I could. Now that I have this second table behind me, I could move all those bins, and I could just I could actually mount a rack on the wall, and I could rack mount a ton of stuff. Maybe Leia could talk my wife into it. She has zero interest. Bob, you got to start a podcast about ham radio, and then you got to bring her in to your podcast. You just say it's just one time, honey. It's just one episode, and you're like, well, honey, I don't have a guest today. Can you be on the show again? Yeah. Again, couldn't get a guest. Can you be on again? You just keep doing that until it's her show, and then I'm the guest. Is kind of what's happened. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions. What's the crack? Can they be decrypted? I don't know anything about the Tetra airwaves. Is the loss in bad or negligible? So loss is bad. If you've got lossy coax cable, it's very bad. You don't want that. You don't want to lose any power. A video request, a discussion of all the balans and ununs. I've talked a lot about that on the antenna video, the DIY antenna video I did. Go check that out. "10-meter dipole," says my SWRs. So Michael Rogers says, I bought the MFJ 10-meter dipole, and my nano VNA is saying my SWR is 1 to 19? That doesn't seem right. It's usually like 3 to 1. It's usually a high number and then 1, or 1.5 to 1. Are you saying it's 1.9 to 1? You'd have to correct me, but you might not be bad at all. Nice to see all the Shacks tonight. Yeah, we haven't done that in a long time. We used to take Shack submissions. By the way, again, on the Discord, we have a whole page, a whole chat that's devoted to showing off and talking about your Shacks, or asking questions about what you should use in the chat in your Shack. So please consider joining us there. Again, link is in the description for the Discord. Leia has a walk-in closet in her office. So oh, Brad, that's so nice of you. Brad says, seriously though, thanks for all the efforts. I know you're too humble to acknowledge this, but you're a leader of a new generation of hams. That's crazy. I mean, it's not that it's humbling. It's just that I don't believe it, because that seems like such a huge thing. So I'm just out here having fun, man. And if you're all having fun, then I'll just keep doing it. When it stops being fun, I'll stop doing it. But thank you. That's very nice of you. Let's see. I hear a lot of wives like to listen to our podcast. That's my wife. My wife is in the chat. My wife. Wes, did I miss yours? Oh, you might have posted it too late. At some point, I got to cut off the... I'll post next time. Not taking any more. If it was in the truck, though... Okay, if you want to see more Shacks, join the Ham Radio Crash Course After Chat on the Discord, and we will be showing off more Shacks, believe me. I'll take a picture of mine with all the googly eyes on it. Oh, wow. Hoosier Ham, KD9QHF. My grandfather was an extra for decades. Pearl Harbor operator in World War II. His shack was a closet in a trailer to an end-fed antenna at one point. Wow. So he was probably CW, Morse code. That's awesome. That's cool. Forget your life. Thinking about a 7610, Josh. It's been a long run. So you'd have to... If you, I don't know that I can make it fit where I have everything right now. I'm actually, if anything, I'm thinking about throwing a 9700 on top of the 7300. Brief Reality says, listen to their first podcast, listening, right? For me and my wife while I painted my bathroom. It was great. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. How do I get a picture to you? KE8LJL. So, Pindle Costello, join the Discord. There is a Ham Shack chat on the left-hand side. You go to Ham Shacks. Click on that, post the picture. You can do it off your phone. You can join Discord on anything. Computer, phone, whatever you got. Lamar Howard finally got into ham because of your channel. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. I know, Mike, N8YO. I want a 9700 too. Smoking Gun asks, have you any videos that discuss the math of amp hours and how to convert to actual time? I know the more watts we push, the less time we have. Okay. Like for sizing a battery, for instance. Yes, we talked about that. Oh boy, now you got me. I've too many videos at this point. I definitely have brought up the equation, and I posted links to the calculators you use to factor that. The big thing you want to avoid, that drop-off, is use something like the Bioenno batteries, the lithium polymer batteries, the LifePose, I believe I'm saying that right. Those batteries don't suffer from that continual use drop-off as much as like AGMs do and sealed lead acids, sleds. Finally got into ham because of your... Okay, got that. How's the Hex beam working for you? Getting a bunch of... JP Tucson in Arizona. You should go watch some of my videos. I swapped it out. I've got a Step IR 3-element beam now. Uncle Sam. I thought we were working on Spotify. I thought it was fixed. If it's not fixed, then I need to go rattle some cages again. I'd like to get into 2-meter single sideband. So Philip Muth W0RHP says, I'd like to get into 2-meter single sideband. There are not a lot of good 2-meter single sideband rigs out there anymore. One of the reasons why I wanted to get a 9700 is because it's kind of like the top of the line current gen 2-meter and 70 centimeter single sideband rig. You can do all of that with the 705, but that's QRP. So, watt hours equals average voltage times amp. There you go. The only thing you got to remember with the watt hours calculation is the percentage of time you're going to be transmitting. Nobody's really going to be transmitting 50% of the time unless they're contesting actively. So generally, you're going to run like a 20-80 or a 30-70 or a 60-40 split, meaning you're transmitting 20% of the time, receiving the rest, which will really elongate the life of your battery. These are great questions. But I don't want to prolong the wrapping this up and starting up the Discord after chat. So I think we're gonna start winding it down here. And what's the Discord link? The Discord link is in the description. Do we have any moderators that have that handy? That can drop that for me. I can grab it. But yeah, all my links to the social medias and again, these are like communities that have gotten larger than me in a big way. The Discord, we're over 10,000 people. The Facebook group, we're over 10,000 people. We have it's crazy. In fact, we passed 12,000, I think, on the Facebook. It's crazy, and you guys are just awesome. So I was doing it with an 818 an amp, but I hated the 818 and the amp. It was pretty much all garbage. Kate Booty has the hot takes on like really using the stuff, and he doesn't pull any punches. Oh man, I got a Twitch subscription. Thank you from Brass Monkey. That's very nice of you. Appreciate the support. You know it's a Twitch subscription if somebody's watching a Baofeng. I'm not afraid to hate stuff. Right on, K-Booty. I'm generally pretty open-minded. Like, I know there's usually somebody out there. Like, there is a consumer for the product. It just may not scratch all my itches. So I feel like I'm pretty good at being objective because, like, I think I understand who the products are for. But sometimes, like that G-Sock, there things come by and I'm like, I don't get it. All right. Okay. How do I get on the... Jeez. You have a horrible name, McCavish. Question, what streaming software do I use? Right now I'm using Streamlabs OBS. Before that I was using OBS, which is just the standard OBS. They're both fantastic. Use OBS. Great stuff. All right, I'm going to wrap things up. I really implore you, if you've got the time, join us over on the Discord. It's a lot of fun, and it's a VC, it's a voice chat, so you get to ask your questions, and it's usually a lot of people. I don't know how many we had. We had over 500 people watching today, though, so it might be a big group, and that's always a lot of fun. We do a good job of getting everybody a chance to ask their questions if they have it, so don't worry about that, and just join us. Tom, when is Season 2 of Phantom Signals? I don't know. You know, if they call me up, I'm happy to go back to work, but we'll see. It's a reference to a nickname. I'm sure it is. All right, I'm going to flip this over here. I got to say a big thank you to the Patreon supporters. You guys pretty much allow me to do all the things that have happened in the last year. Being able to like upgrade my computer. Before that, I was using my 2011 iMac to do the show. I was able to redo my computer, among other things. A lot of the radios that I buy, like that GSOC, I buy with Patreon dollars. That way I feel like I can be pretty open with what I feel. And generally that also allows me to then give those radios away back to the Patreon supporters in lots of different interesting ways, and we have some more of those coming up. We do have a Patron Picks episode coming up in the beginning of December, the first weekend of the month. I always let the patrons decide what the show topic will be, and the vote will start probably tomorrow to pick what we're going to do on that first December weekend. And let's see. Before you leave, make sure you hit... Oh, thank you, Cameron. I appreciate that. I'm not sure if that question was for me, Scorpius, gaming, and more. Do you have a video on compressor usage and mic blinker or noise blinker? Yes and no. I have. So if you go watch my 7300 tips and tricks video, I do cover how those work on the radio, and I show you on a 7300. If that's not a big deal, you can just use that same concept for any radio. They pretty much all work the same. Hey, thanks, Chuck. Appreciate you coming out. K6ARK, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Man, Adam is a absolute machine. He's a soda machine. A soda machine. That is a somebody. Leia, are you listening to this? Soda machine, but not soda. Sota machine. There's a T-shirt idea. I like it. What would let's see. Thank you, Josh. I appreciate you watching the Smoking Gun. All right, so now what I've got to do is I've got to wrap up the stream. I've got to wait a little bit, and then I got to end the stream. So we're just going to hang out here. We're just going to jam a little bit because for some reason my multicast software, it just cuts it and I lose the end of the stream. So yeah, soda machine. Is she okay, good. Okay, Leia's there. Got it. So what is it? It's literally like a soda machine, but he's got like trekking poles, and you make him look like he's going up a hill. Let's see. All right. Never used Discord before. Quick rundown. Do I have can I do that? Let me see. Can I make this happen? Boop, boop, boop. Just like that. Yes, I can. Can he do it? Yes. No, stop. All right, so this is Discord. All the chat rooms are on the left-hand side. My channel is right at the top. So there's all these different servers. Like Adam Savage has a server. It's good. Join it. But in the top left, HRCC is literally on my logo. You click on it. And then on the left-hand side, you will see all the different channels that exist. Ham radio. So ham radio is, about ham radio, people talking there. MCOM is about emergency communications. Field operations. We've got an HFNet group. We've got a swap chat for people that want to buy and sell and trade stuff. We have a ham memes section. Damn, I kind of wish Cycle 25 would get here a little faster. But what you do for the live stream is you go down here. It says live stream. You click on the live stream with the hashtag. Where is it? There you go. And so you'll literally join the chat room. So this is a live chat. People are already showing off stuff. What's going on here? You got Morgan. Hey, what's up, Morgan? Cool. And then there's the chat room, and those are already people that are all queued up to talk right now. We got 50 people in the voice chat right now. Did I see Kyle? Oh, cool. Kyle's in the house. All right. Got a lot of good people. And so that's all it is. Once you get dropped into it, it's just a straight up, you just go down that list, whatever you're interested in, go post there, talk to people. But specifically, you want to go down to Livestream and click on the Livestream voice. Oh, I joined too early. I'll be back in a second. And then and then the Livestream voice chat. Make sure you set your headphones and your microphone appropriately, and then you'll be able to hear everybody talk. Right on? Right on. Okay. I am Josh, KI6NAZ. Now I'm fully wrapping up, so I will talk to you all later. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. 73.